7 years old, we moved back to Modesto from Sacramento. We moved into a house that my grandfather owned and built that was directly in front of his house. He lived off the alley and we lived in the front house. One of my mom and dad's friends being over, and my mom and dad partied a lot. They were a young couple. They had a lot of friends. They were over and he overdosed. And at 7 years old, I remember standing there and looking at this big man. He was a big guy, but standing there looking at him and laying on the ground, and he was out. The adults were running around frantic, and everybody was trying to figure out what to do to get this guy to come to, Eventually someone mentioned something about throwing cold water on him, so they threw cold water on him and he woke up. It's something that obviously is ingrained in my brain, so I don't think I should have saw that. My mom and my dad fought a lot. One story is all the children were at home. At this point, my older sister moved in with us. Up until this point, she hadn't lived with us. Like, you heard stuff breaking, stuff falling. My older sister at this point opens the bedroom door and starts screaming and yelling at my parents to stop. And my mom is telling her to go back in the room. But the door is still open because at this point we're all frantic and we're all just wanting them to stop crying, and they wouldn't stop. So I don't know how much time went by, but my grandfather came busting in the back door, and he had this like big long shotgun. We stood in the dining room, cocked it back, and shot. He shot towards my dad. My dad took off running through the front door, and my grandpa again cocked back again and shot a second shot. I think that if he really wanted to hit him, he would have. There was rage in my grandfather's eyes. I, up until that point, had never seen rage come from him. He was always just fun and funny. I mean, he had his moments, but for the most part, he was just fun and funny to be around. My grandpa was an old military man, and everything that he taught me was in a way to protect yourself, especially as a girl or, a young woman. I think if he wanted to shoot him, he would have. We ended up moving shortly after that. My mother and father reconciled, and we ended up moving into a conventional housing place, and it was right across the street from the elementary school. At 7 years old, my older sisters and brother had a friend who was probably 4 or 5 years older than me. And the friend would come over all the time, and while he was there, he would touch me inappropriately. He would stick his hand down my shirt, stick his hand down my pants, and every time he came over, he found a way to either sit by me or to be close to me so that he can sneak and put his hands down my pants or down my shirt. I just remember feeling dirty. I felt like I couldn't tell anybody. And so I just lived with that. I held it. By the time I was 10 years old, I told him, no more. You cannot do this anymore. I won't allow you to. If you do it, I'm going to tell. And he stopped. He stopped really coming around after that. I had this best friend in elementary school. And I remember one time we went to stay the night at her house. She was doing a slumber party or something. And I was all gung-ho to go. And my mom was like, well, I got to meet her parents. And my mom and dad came, met the parents. And when they were getting ready to leave, I was like, all right, going with my mom and dad. So it was just awkward and weird. And I just didn't want to stay. But we ended up staying anyway, and that was probably the first real slumber party that I had had. At 10 and 11, life was fairly normal, went by kind of fast. My mom and dad would still fight. My dad drove trucks, so he was gone for a majority of the time, and he would be back, every couple of weekends or whatever. So being the youngest, I always wanted to copy my big sister and my big brother naturally. So she got mad at my dad one day, because let me tell you how savage my sister is. She packed her bag and she was like, I'm running away. And I was like, no, Maisha, don't run away. Please don't run away. And she just like really mad, just packing her bags all fast, just stuffing stuff in her bags. So then she climbs out of her bedroom window. I was like, you can't leave without me. You can't leave without me. I wanted to go with her. So I was like, I'm going with you. If you're going, I'm going. Like, you're not leaving me here by myself. She got all the way to the grapevine and remembered that she forgot something. And the whole time I'm yelling and screaming, I'm trying to drag behind her. And she's like, go back, Shelly. Like, no, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I can't take it anymore. She went back in the front door. She walked right back in the front door like my dad wasn't sitting in the living room. He got up and turned around and was like, how you get outside? Till this day, that is one of the funniest stories we share amongst siblings, is that day Maisha decided that she was going to run away. But she was grounded so bad, which made her even madder, and she just wanted to run away even more. Yeah, that was pretty funny. We actually had a recipe where we made biscuits out of flour and water. How we did that, I have no idea, but we ate a lot of those biscuits with honey and butter on them and government cheese. Me and my brother, like I was so close to him, every scar I have on my body is from my brother. He used to be able to talk me into all kind of crazy stuff. We had these like rolling hills that were close to our house. He liked to go and play there with his friends on his BMX bike. He had this bike and he put pegs on the back so he can ride his friends around and stuff. And I always so wanted to be around him that one day he's like, Shelly, come on, come with me. Anything he did, I wanted to do. I just thought he was cool. So we ride the bike up the street. We get to the hills and he's like, I'm going to go down the hill, like hop off the bike. And I'm like, hop off the bike, watch him go down the hill. He goes down and I'm like at the top of the hill, jumping up and down, happy for him. So then he comes back up and it's like a real steep hill. Okay, so now get on the back of the bike and we're going to go down the hill. And I'm like, no. Everything in me the signs were saying, no, don't do it. But I did it anyway because that's my brother, right? Oh my gosh. So he puts me on the back and I'm like, no, Michael, don't go down here. Wait, don't go yet. He's like, oh man, Shelly, just stop. Be like, stop being a sissy. Like, you whine too much and all this, right? So naturally, I'm like, okay, we can go down the hill. So we start going down the hill. I'm holding on to the back of him because I'm standing up on the pegs on the back wheel. And we're floating down this hill and it's like this moment of freedom, like, ah! And then we crashed. My knee was so messed up. It was like bloody and everything else. And I just laid there and cried. And he's like, get up, Shelly, trying to console me and be all the nice brother now. Even after that, like he tried to talk me into going down another hill on the front of the handlebars. And I was like, no, that's it for me. Like, I learned my lesson. I'm not doing it again. No. My brother was a trip. I don't know if you can see it, but this scar right here, my brother always had like the best bikes, the skateboards, everything. He's the only boy out of my mom's 5 children, the middle child and the only boy. So he used to teach me how to ride skateboards. We were playing on the sidewalk and they were doing like construction and the sidewalk was lifted probably about just about that much. My brother talks me into laying flat on my belly and so he can push me up the sidewalk on the skateboard. And he pushed the skateboard, just stopped where the sidewalk had the hump, but I kept going. I slid on my lip right here. My mom was so mad because it was again on my face. It was my brother talking me into doing things and talking me into, whatever. We were playing in a shopping cart one time. We grew up in Modesto. This was like our fun. We were playing in the shopping cart. And he's pushing us in the shopping cart and then letting go, rolling up the street with like no one to stop us if anything happened. Me and my cousin, I want to say it was my cousin. I'm not going to say any names, but you know who you are. The shopping cart flipped and my tooth went through my lip. Let me see. I'm going to get a little closer. Right here. I attribute that scar to my brother. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. 3 scars on my face that I can attribute to my brother. However, you know, it was always fun times. My twin sister made me so mad one time. She picked on me. She picked on me a lot. The sister, the baby sister, whatever. You know how to antagonize me to a point where I would just cry because I was so frustrated. I didn't know what to do. And locked her out of the room one day. She was one of those people who loved dolls. I hated dolls. I took one of her dolls and I hung her doll on the wall. Hammered one hand stretched out, and then I hammered the other hand stretched out, and then so I had 2 more nails. I was learning a lot about church at this moment. I crucified her doll. I feel bad about it. Till this day when I bring it up, I'm so sorry, Cheryl. And she's like, yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah, like, that's not right. I'm still mad about that. She's over it, obviously, but her dolls were her babies, and she really believed that, but she just made me so mad. And after I did it and I saw her face when she walked in the room, like I was instantly gratified. But then when I saw her face and she was crying and she was so hurt and she was so angry, I just felt bad. It was a turning moment for me because I didn't do anything like that to bother anyone ever again. But I was just so angry. Sorry, Cheryl. At 12 years old, that's when my mother had a story to tell me and my twin sister. We have a godmom who we call our godmother, but she's not our actual godmother. Our actual godparents are this older couple, but I haven't seen them in over 30 years. We would go over there a lot and spend time with them, and we also spent a lot of time with my godmother who was around. We would go over there in the summers and just spend summers, weeks at a time with her. And one time we went over there and my godmother, she told me and my twin sister, hey, there's somebody on the phone that wants to talk to you. And she tells us the name and we're like, okay, weird man. Hi, how are you? Bye. Gotta go. Time to play. And didn't really understand the magnitude of what she had done then because we did not know anything. My mother pulled a blanket out, pulled some snacks out. We sat in the front yard of our duplex, and she told me and my twin sister at that moment that our dad was not our dad. And up until that moment, I had never thought about it because we were never treated indifferently. We were his children. He treated us as his children. Whether he knew or not is still the question. We didn't have a lot of questions for my mom at that time because why? As far as we knew, we weren't missing out on anything, so we didn't have a lot of questions for her about this newfound man. You know, it was just a secret that me and my twin sister shared with my mom. But I just remember people telling me all the time, oh, you look just like your dad. And you know, my mom's friends would joke and then they would laugh, and I'm like, why are they laughing? I would look in the mirror and say, I don't look like him. My skin is dark, but I don't look like him. Maybe I get my dark skin from him. And that's what I always just thought. And so shortly after that, my aunt got a call and she just got frantic on the phone and she starts pacing and she's yelling and she's a real animated person. So she's yelling and, you know, and she's like, not Charlene. And, you know, I just remember thinking like, what? Like, what's wrong with mom? Is she okay? You know? And then she looks down at us and she's like, oh, like she recognized that she was losing it. And I think at that moment, I can't remember if she told us at that moment or if she told us when we were in the car with her. But she told us. In that moment, I just remember my dad becoming a monster to me. You know, he put my mom in the hospital. He put my mom in the hospital. I remember her coming out of the hospital and having marks on her, and I'm just feeling like, you gotta leave this man. Like he couldn't possibly love you. I'm 12 years old, right? And in my head, he couldn't possibly love you if this is what he does to you. My mother never went back to my dad after that. We moved in with my Aunt Freddie Mae.